pick a number between 1 and 10. You picked 7. Or you specifically avoided 7 because something told you not to. Either way, that wasn't you. Your brain had already narrowed the options before you felt yourself choosing. Every decision you believe you're making right now, what to eat, what to say, whether to keep watching this video, your brain has already processed, evaluated, and selected. You're not the driver. You're getting a very convincing live update of where the car is already going. Let's start with what you actually believe. You believe you are in control, not in a philosophical way, in a practical, moment-to-moment, obvious way. You woke up this morning and decided to get out of bed. You chose what to drink. You picked up your phone. Each of those felt like a choice. Each of them felt like you. That feeling is so constant, so total, so woven into every second of your existence that questioning it feels almost absurd. Almost. Because in 1983, a neurologist at the University of California named Benjamin Libet ran an experiment so simple it almost didn't seem worth running. And what he found broke something that science is still trying to put back together. Here's what Libet did. He asked volunteers to sit in front of a specially designed clock. A dot moved around the face of the clock continuously. The volunteers had one instruction. Flex your wrist whenever you feel like it, whenever you want. No pressure, no timing. Just when the urge strikes, move. And when you move, note where the dot was on the clock. That's your moment of decision. That's when you chose. Simple. Except Libet had also wired electrodes to their scalps, measuring brain activity in real time. And what the electrodes showed was this. The brain began preparing the movement up to 550 milliseconds before the volunteers reported feeling the urge to move. Half a second. The brain was already acting before the conscious mind had decided anything. The decision, the felt, experienced, certain sense of choosing came after, not before. After. Libet called this preparatory signal the readiness potential, a wave of neural activity building silently in the brain before awareness caught up. Before you knew you were going to move, your brain already knew. Now, the scientific community did what it always does when a result is too uncomfortable. It looked for the mistake. For 2 decades, researchers tried to replicate Libet's findings, challenge his methodology, find the flaw. They didn't find it. What they found instead was worse. In 2008, neuroscientist John Dylan Haynes at the Max Planck Institute in Germany ran an updated version of Libet's experiment using a full brain scanner instead of simple electrodes. Volunteers were asked to press one of 2 buttons, left hand or right hand, whenever they felt like it, and they had to note when they decided. The brain scanner could predict which button they were going to press, up to 10 seconds before they reported making the decision. 10 seconds. Not half a second. 10 full seconds before you consciously chose, your brain had already chosen. The outcome was already written. You just hadn't read it yet. But here's where it gets complicated, and honestly, where it gets stranger. Because Libet himself didn't conclude that free will doesn't exist. He found something else in the data. Something nobody talks about as much. There was a window. A narrow one. Between the moment the readiness potential began and the moment the action actually happened, there was approximately 200 milliseconds where conscious awareness could intervene, could veto, could say no. Not this time. Libet called it the veto power. Your brain may be initiating actions before you're aware of them, but you retain the ability, in that slim window, to cancel, to stop, to override. Which raises a question that nobody has cleanly answered yet. If the veto is also a brain process, and it is, then who is doing the vetoing? Is that free will? Or is that just another layer of the same unconscious machinery running slightly later? The honest answer is, we don't fully know. And that gap in the answer is where the real discomfort lives. So what does this mean for the decisions you made today? Let's be precise about what the science actually says and what it doesn't. The Libet experiment and Haynes, and the dozens of replications that followed, show that simple physical actions like moving a finger or pressing a button are initiated unconsciously before awareness catches up. That is established. That is not seriously disputed anymore. What is disputed is how far this extends. A finger flex is not the same as choosing a career, or ending a relationship, or deciding what you believe. Complex decisions, the ones that define your life, involve different neural architecture. More regions. More time. More what neuroscientists call deliberative processing. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for weighing consequences, imagining futures, Evaluating options is heavily involved in complex choice in a way it simply isn't for spontaneous finger movements. So the uncomfortable truth sits somewhere in the middle. Your moment to moment actions, the small, constant stream of choices that make up a day, are largely initiated before you're aware of them. Your larger defining choices involve more conscious processing. But even those are shaped by a brain you didn't choose, built from genetics you didn't select, formed by experiences that happened to you before you were old enough to consent to them. The self that is doing the choosing was itself never chosen. And this is where it stops being neuroscience and starts being something harder. Because if the brain that's making your decisions was shaped by factors entirely outside your control, your genes, your childhood, your culture, the specific configuration of neurons you happen to be born with, then what exactly is the thing you call you? Philosopher Daniel Dennett spent decades arguing that free will is real, but not what we think it is. Not some ghost operating independently of the brain, but the brain's own capacity to reflect on itself, to model its own future behavior, to imagine choosing differently. That capacity, rare in nature, extraordinary in its complexity, is what freedom actually means. Not freedom from your brain, freedom through it. Others disagree. Neuroscientist Sam Harris argues the opposite, that the self is a kind of useful fiction, a story the brain tells about its own processes to make them feel unified and authored. The author doesn't exist. Only the story does. Both of them are working from the same data. Both of them are reaching different conclusions, which tells you something important. The science is settled on what the brain does. What it means is still completely open. Here's what's true, regardless of where you land on this. You are sitting with a brain you have never fully understood, one that processes 11 million bits of information per second, and surfaces roughly 40 of them into conscious awareness. 40. Out of 11 million. The rest is happening without you. Has always been happening without you. The version of reality you experience, the felt sense of being a person making choices in a world, is a curated highlight reel, not the full broadcast. And the choices that feel most like you, the spontaneous ones, the gut feelings, the instincts, those are the ones your conscious mind had the least to do with. The you that you're most certain of is the you understand least. So pick a number between 1 and 10. You already did. Before I finished the sentence, before you felt yourself choosing, your brain had already landed on something. Was that you? Maybe the better question is, what would it even mean if it wasn't? Because whatever made that choice, whatever ran that calculation in the dark before awareness arrived, it's been running your life. Every day, in every room you've ever stood in, making decisions you thought were yours. And it will keep going, long after you've finished deciding what to think about this.